Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Yana Johnson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftman Oliver Carswell Doherty. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool reflection by visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is earth by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts, of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every state advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this National Memorial Museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they love, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Herbert Ernest Brown. Herbert Brown was born in Sandhurst, near Bendigo, Victoria, in 1881. He was the second son of Jonathan and Elizabeth Brown. He married Ada Hocking in 1903, worked as a miner, and on the outbreak of war in 1914, he had 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. Herbert Brown enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in March 1915. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas with the 7th Battalion. He first went to Egypt and then from there to Gallipoli. 1 month after he arrived on Gallipoli with the 7th Battalion, his 4th child, a daughter, was born in Australia. Brown was wounded in the Battle of Lone Pine by a bomb wound to his right buttock. He was evacuated from the peninsula to hospital in Cairo and was only able to rejoin his battalion for active duty the following year. In early 1916, the AIF, recently returned from Gallipoli, was undergoing a period of reorganisation and training. As part of this process, Brown was transferred to the 1st Pioneer Battalion and in April 1916 arrived in France to fight on the Western Front. He was known by his mates in the Pioneers as High Explosive because of his initials, HE. A month after arriving in France, Private Brown became ill and had to spend several months in hospital suffering from balanitis. He did not return to his battalion until after the major battles of 1916 were over. Winter was closing in and the 1st Pioneer Battalion spent what would become one of the coldest winters on record, labouring close to the front lines for days and weeks at a time. In late March 1917, with the weather still bitterly cold, Private Brown was in a camp not far behind the front lines on the Somme. On the 25th of March, he had been drinking rum that he apparently found in a dugout or hut. Accounts differ. Some say he became sick directly after drinking the rum, but others say that he went to bed without blankets. But when someone went to find him the following morning, he was dead. The formal decision was that he had died in the night from heart failure. Private Herbert Brown was buried in the nearby military cemetery at Bazeton-les-Petits. He was 35 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Herbert Ernest Brown, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.